I am Ted Tresca. I feel like I know a lot of people in the room, and I met even more of them last night. I work for the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, but I started this project with my collaborator and a number of other folks, Adam Cottrell, a number of years ago when I worked for the Green Bay Fish and Wildlife Service office, and we were in charge of the Great Lakes stocking database. So we had an idea to make something better about the stocking database. It was prime for that Julie mentioned, the innovation and updating. So I'm going to take you through, we are kind of the guinea pigs. You're going to go on a roller coaster ride with me. We're going to be the first live demo that we've done in this kind of meeting for a while, so bear with me. There'll be some presentation, a live demo, and back to the presentation. So here we go. So fish get stocked all around the basin, and they get put into various parts of the different lake, and it's very important to keep track of where those fish go. Nowhere is it more important than in the Great Lakes. The fish that are stocked in the Great Lakes augment both commercial and recreational fisheries that we've heard about today, and those in turn support the fish community objectives for many of the lakes. And while stocking has been going on for more than 150 years in the Great Lakes, the database that we are concerned with right now only goes back to 1950, but it contains over 70,000 entries pertaining to those stocking events. These events cover 23 different organizations, ranging from tribal organizations, provincial, state, and even private organizations, mostly on the Canadian side. Just to give you an idea, the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, there's over 14,000 events concerning 16 different species, amounting to almost 500 million fish stocked. And these will continue into the future, and this data issue will just keep becoming more and more formidable. As you can guess, stocking and fisheries management go hand in hand. There's many aspects of stocking that come into play in terms of evaluating different parts of the fisheries, accurate fish ages, survival rates, fish movement, all the things that we talk about pretty much here daily. And the stocking is fundamental to a lot of efforts that are ongoing and increasing in the Great Lakes. Well, we've heard about rehabilitation efforts with a lot of native species and other species. And add to that the widespread use of coded wire tags to evaluate these fisheries objectives and all the different aspects of the fish stocking purposes that we do in the Great Lakes. So just to give you kind of some background, this is the original Great Lakes fish stocking database. If you ever used it, you knew it was functional. It was developed in 1991, updated a little bit in 1997 when the Green Bay Fish and Wildlife Service office took over, long before I got there. But it was a basic web-based interface with some basic broad-based filters and data download functionality. It worked for many years. It was limited in its capacity. You put things in, you hoped you got something out. And that counted on somebody putting the right data in, you asking the right questions and getting the right data back. The data was submitted using a somewhat standardized template, which would benefit us 20, 30 years down the road. And the outputs were basic but not very user-friendly. As you can see, it's a fairly basic input. You selected a few things from a pull down, and as you'll see, this has changed a little bit in the new version. There were a lot of limitations to the original. The submission process was very manual with little to no validation to ensure data quality. It was difficult to track what data had been submitted. We counted on the people who were submitting data to keep track of what they put in and what was missing. That often didn't get circled around to completion. Sometimes there was duplicate and missing data. It was almost impossible to identify errors. Once data went in, it was just there. You could pull it out. If you pulled out data, it came out on the table looking like this, which if you're looking for all the lake trout stocking in Lake Michigan, it takes a lot of time to go through and identify which of these little tiny values here might be wrong. And a lot of the use of the database was limited just because of the reliability. People weren't quite sure that all the data was in there. And so the outputs that came out of this were sometimes a little suspect. So the solution that came around was a project to develop an interactive tool to visualize Great Lakes fish stocking events for a lot of what Julie just mentioned, mostly to help out Great Lakes fishery managers, but with a parallel this often came down to helping out the general public and agency staff. Because a lot of what agency fish managers wanted to communicate to the public was, here's what we did, be happy about it. Everybody asks, where did our fish go? And so this application we're hoping is something useful for that, where they can say, right here, here's the map, all your fish went in there, here's the size they were, here's how big they were, here's what strain they were. So what we needed was this tool, and the tool kind of came about as a leverage of existing data requests and databases that were already out there. FSIS2 was the brainchild of my collaborator, Adam Cottrell, who really should be giving this talk but couldn't get out of province travel. He's the brains behind this outfit. He kind of in his spare time had made a visualization just like this for a lot of the OMNR data. So we were talking one day, he was showing me that, and I was talking about lamenting the struggles that we were having with the fish stocking database, and he says, we could do that with this and that and that, and boom, it's done. I said, that sounds great. That was 2019. And this project's been going on pretty much ever since. And it also leverages the stocking request, the requests that have been going out year after year in the past. Agency coordinators knew that they were going to get this request and they were going to be asked for this kind of data, and we'd put it together. So we leveraged all that stuff together, put together a proposal and sent it into the science transfer program, and lo and behold, they funded our idea. And it was great. We got together, we set up a technical team of a handful of folks who were familiar with the stocking database and its uses, so we knew what we needed to do. Once that was assembled from a number of folks from Fish and Wildlife Service, the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, USGS, and Ontario, or OMNRF, we decided we needed also an advisory team. So we pulled together a number of fisheries managers and biologists to help us figure out what exactly they wanted to be able to pull out of this application. And it was great because we got constant feedback while we're developing things, asking why does this do this, why doesn't this do this, and all the things that we, as simple project managers, hadn't quite thought about. The initial hurdle with any of this is the basin-wide data scrub. As you can imagine, there's 70,000 fish records in the database, and this was pretty much the product of 40 years of Wild West style data entry. While species strains were fairly straightforward, they were fairly well agreed upon from lake to lake. Strain codes and other things were just whatever you wanted to put in. It could be anything you wanted that made sense to you, and that often happened. Some things would change a handful of times over 20 or 30 years. Some things would change every time a new staff person started putting in data. It was very, very much a challenge. And the biggest challenge was going back and finding out that some of this data only lived on paper data sheets somewhere or in a leather-bound ledger at a hatchery somewhere, and to figure out what the issue was or to verify something, they'd have to go back to those things. So what we did was we took all the data that was in the database, started looking at it, tried to apply as much automated cleaning processes to it as we could, trying to make sure that this management unit matched up to this lake and this grid was in this management unit, this species, this strain went with this species, that kind of thing. So what we did was we made a whole bunch of Excel sheets for each agency and sent them back to them and said, here's what we think we found for errors. Here's our suggested fixes. Can you confirm that? If they are right, deny it if it's wrong, fix it if it's really wrong. So we identified those critical data, and through a lot of hard work with the stocking coordinators, we went back and forth many, many times to get the data as clean as we could. And then to make this akin to when you go shopping online, you want all the information there to be correct, because what's the worst thing? You get to a place and you're like, I want to filter this on this, but it's not there. And then all of a sudden you have to scroll through 300, whatever they are, just to figure out where the blue one is. So what we needed was data that would allow you to filter any of that data down to the point that you found it useful. So the big thanks goes to all the agency coordinators that really were the backbone of this project. And this project, just to give you an idea of the scope of this project, we had contributors from 23 agencies, 23 different organizations, as I mentioned, pretty much every state, a number of tribes, federal partners, you name it. And it's a lot of data over the years. So this is where it's going to get interesting, where I'm going to give you the live demo, and hopefully this will go just right. Sure. Technical difficulty. And just so you know, this site lives where the old site used to live, so our tech gurus, Jeff McCullough Commissions, made it so that if you go to anywhere where you used to go to the old stocking database, you'll now be routed to the new stocking database, so you can't get to the old dinosaur anymore, and hopefully everything will be fine. Did it go?
No. Oh, wait, yeah. Let's see if, is the PowerPoint up on here? I can just print it out. Hold on. This should work. Maybe. Something went very good.
Food stuff.
There. Great. Alright, here we go. So, this is the site that you get to when you originally get to the stocking database. As you can see, it's kind of set up like a lot of sites that you may encounter on the internet. It automatically loads to the most recent year stocking events, showing just kind of what's been entered in the database. So this is 2023. As you can see, there are a few agencies that may or may not have their data in. You'll see over on the right here, we have a legend for what all these colors pertain to. Green is lake trout, red is rainbow trout, so you can, and it's very interactive. I'm probably going to bounce around because there's a lot of things that are hard to show on this, but I'm going to try and show you as many as possible. And the other thing is, if I don't show you, just go on there and click around, because you can't break this unless you have a login, and then you could break it, but most you don't have a login, so we're probably safe. Let's say I wanted to go to, I want to look at, you can use the criteria over here and just do clear all to select one of the lakes you like, and then do select all. You can go down here, you can select species, but there's actually a few different ways to skin the cat. The actual easier way that I like to go is up at the top. You'll see a number of tabs here pertaining to stocking. One pertains to the stocking events list, which is an overall list of all the events, which is kind of cumbersome. A little easier to use is the find events. If you click on find events, it will take you to the next site. There's a map here that you can use these draw tools to select exactly the area you want. It's just similar to every mapping application there is. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. You can hide the map if you don't want to see it there for whatever reason. But here's the nuts and bolts where if you want to say, I want to look at stocking in Lake Michigan, and I want to see brown trout, Chinook salmon, coho, and let's say lake trout, just for fun. There's all kinds of other different pull downs. I'm not going to use this at this point, but you can start with a year here, a latest year, stocking month, agency, state, province, stocking method, life stage. Anything you might want to do, it's mostly here. So you hit the submit button in the lower right, and up come all the results that pertain to that criteria that you just sent. They do, trust me. There, yay! As you can see, you'll see lake trout in green, coho salmon light blue, that kind of thing. There's a lot of maneuverability for this part of the application here. You'll see the statistics. It's pretty much just kind of a summary of what you're looking at. There's the number of fish. It's probably a little small to read. How many yearling equivalents those are, that's the standard default we use is yearling equivalents. Something to be aware of, 13,000 events, 4 species. But the other interesting thing you can do is go to map settings and click over here, and you can look at all of this data summarized by something different. You can see right now this is by reported point, which generally is the lat long of the stocking point, or the centroid of the grid if we didn't have lat long, or the middle of the statistical district if we didn't have grid. You can summarize by state and province of who did the stocking, which agency, which species, which strain. If you want to look at different strains of all these different things, you can pull that up. But say we want to see stocking by agency in their statistical district, and it would pull it up, and you can hover over any of these things. So this will tell you that the Fish and Wildlife Service stocked 6.6 million yearling equivalents in MM6 over that time period. You can click on things if you want to only look at, if you want to look at just, hold on, I will get to where I was doing. Let's skip that part. I'll show you where the function I was just thinking of. But here's a plot of all the data that you just saw above. It's got 2 different options. There's a tooltip and a brush. If you want to just say, well, I really actually want to look at these 8 years here, you can highlight that, and then what it does is it changes everything that you're looking at. All the stuff in the map above changed. All the plots that I'm going to show you here in a second have changed. You can also go back to tooltip, which is And anytime you do something and you haven't figured out how to get away from it, look for the blue reset button up near where you kind of got into the problem. And it'll go back. Click on tooltip, you hover over any of the things, and it'll show up that in 2011, Michigan DNR stock 2.26, even equivalence of pink. And I don't remember what pink is, so I have to go back and find out that that is, well, it's Michigan DNR, it's not by strict anymore. The other added things down here are a number of different pie charts. I know a lot of people don't like pie charts, but this is the easiest way to portray this. And you can look at who stocked what, by what state, by what management unit, by what agency. So if I get down here and I say, oh, I really want to see what Fish and Wildlife sort of stock, click on that part of the pie, everything gets reset. So this, you saw that this management unit thing changed. If I did that, if I click back to reset, you'll see that readjust. So if you figure out that you've done some filtering and you don't like it, you just need to go back and make sure you reset. I think there's a reset all button up near the top. There's also a species and strain pull down. Here, there's life stage method, stocking method. Here for how these fish got into the water, what life stage they were, which year they got, what month they got stocked of the year. All kinds of interesting things. I'm going to leave you with that and move to the next one, which is code wire tags, which probably a lot of managers are interested in. And I'm going to use the one, there's a similar one, all the lists are the find the code wire tag events. If we go down to the bottom, down to here, and say I'm a fish manager and I have 2 fish, and their tag numbers are 640, 371. And then I just put a comma and I have 640, 204. And then I don't know any more about those fish and I really want to know, so I click on submit. It goes out, finds all that data, puts them on a map. It says those code wire tags were stocked in these 3 locations. One up here near the Straits, one over here in Wisconsin, and another one down here in Michigan City. Sometimes they're a little hard to find. We're working on making sure those are a little bit more visible. If you want to know more about those different events, here's the coded wire tag code that you put in. Here's the stocking event for each one. You'll see that this tag was stocked on 4 different events. If I click on the tag, I get more information on the tag itself. And we have a lot of QA/QC kind of tests here to tell you whether you should be concerned about something about that tag in terms of which kind of fish it came out. Here's a red comment telling me that the tag was reused and telling me down here that it was true for multiple strains. So this was used, if I look down at the data that was right down here, I find out and look and see that this was stocked in Seneca Lake strain, Michigan Lewis Lake strain, Huron Prairie Sound, and more Seneca Lake fish. So that's kind of how that works. The other interesting thing that's parallel here is if you click on the stock ID, this will work for pretty much any of the stocking events. This will take you to the actual event, telling you all the information that's pretty much in the database. If you want to know even more, you click on more detail, that will even pull up a little bit more. If I click on it correctly, if you're a data manager, they want to see all this. If you are a qualified user that can edit things, you can go in and edit the event. You can change the location. You can change just about anything. I don't want to mess this up, so I'm going to get out. Down at the bottom, there'll be a submit or cancel. I'm going to cancel out. I've lost track of time. Do you need me? I have 1 minute left. Son of a gun. All right, I'm done. You're going to have to figure out the rest yourself. Now I'm going to fire through some slides. Sorry, I should have transitioned there. Do you have a question while we're transitioning back? Yeah, Frank.
The old database produced tremendous amount of information. It was great, but one of the biggest problems was the agencies updating it. Are you making any progress where they can? This is going to be tremendous.
Right, and
get it in quicker.
Yeah, so that's thanks for the lead-in, because the next one is data uploading and updating. We made this application. Green Bay used to take all the data in, do stuff to it, put it into the database, but the problem was we didn't know anything about the data. We look at data and it's like, it's right, you put it in. This allows the agencies to look at the data, look at it on a map, see that their stocking went in and it's not in the lake, it's somewhere wherever in the watershed, that point needs to be changed, or we didn't stock lake trout there in that year, so they can go in and change this. Now it's on the agency data coordinators. So we've made it fairly simple. It's an Excel sheet right now that goes in that has some validation. You can't put the wrong thing in here. And then there's even more validation when you go to upload it. And once you upload it, it spits it all out and says, here's where you just put in stocking events and here's all the information. Does it look right? And as long as that's right, then you move on. So hopefully a lot of those errors will get identified, and we'll see. And we've been going back and forth with the agencies and say, go check your data. We have no idea if it's right or wrong, or what's wrong. You know, if there are errors, I can't look at them. You know, I don't know what New York DEC stocked in Lake Ontario in 1985. So this hopefully will make this a lot easier. And we've got a system a little bit later, I'll tell you, about how to report those errors. If you see something, how do you tell the agency? I'm going to fly through this because it's kind of techie stuff, but it is the nuts and bolts of this. It's an app, the REST API, which is Application Program Interface. This is how your app on your phone gets all your stock and weather information. It goes out to this dynamic database online, grabs the data, brings it back, and does pretty things to it. This also is the way we do things. It makes all the data available through HTTP requests. It's used to internally provide the maps and the graphs. And it also allows people to write codes outside of the application and go in and get it and bring it out. And every time they go to get it, it's the most updated stuff. It's not, you don't have to download it and worry that your download is 3 years out of date. We had a lot of user inputs during development, given that we had the advisor team and the tech team. And I realize I'm over, so I'm going to fire through this. I hate to say. We had a basin-wide workshop for data coordinators, kind of show them how this works and get their feedback. And that feedback was constant. It was like, you should make this better, you should make this do this, and that kind of thing. And Adam was great at adapting everything we had. We've created a lot of how-to documents to walk users through. We've got spatial lookup for if you don't know what unit or grid that site is in, you just put a point on a map, it spits out all the information. We've got lookup codes for all the standard codes that are used in the database. And we've got a trouble ticket for if you find a problem with the application, you can send it to us and we'll try and fix it. We've had a lot of usage, probably 1,000 of these are me, 23,000 since in the last year. We've had 21 unique users, 29 users downloaded documents, and 36 have come directly to the site, mostly through bookmarks. 943 have come through the search engine. We've had a lot of different places, caveats there. Just to acknowledge everybody that's worked on this, lion's share of the work was Adam Cottrell and Jeff McCauley. He does the technical side of getting this up on the internet, but I want to appreciate everybody there. And the biggest thanks go to all the agency stocking data coordinators, because without this, we'd still be stuck where we were. And hopefully it will continue to get better every year. And as I said, there's a QR code. It doesn't look good on your phone, but it'll get you to the right place if you need to go on your computer. And this site is, this email is actually on the site too, in the About page. If you ever need to contact us, it goes to the folks who can fix your problem. So sorry, I'm 3 minutes over.